Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are doing well. So in this video, I will be explaining about Dr. Samuel Johnson and his literary criticism. So let's start. So Samuel Johnson was born in Lichfield, Staffordshire in 1709. He was the son of small bookseller, a poor man but intelligent and fond of literature. From his childhood, Johnson had to struggle against physical deformity and disease and the consequent disinclination to hard work. He prepared for the university partly in the school but largely by omnivorous reading in his father's shop, and when he entered Oxford he had read more classic authors than had most of the graduates. Before finishing his course, he had to leave the university on account of his poverty, and at once he began his long struggle as a hack writer to earn his living. He is often referred to as Dr. Johnson as an English writer who made lasting contribution to English literature as a poet, playwright, essayist, moralist, literary critic, biographer, editor, and lexicographer. As a critic of literature, Dr. Johnson was well equipped. About his classical reading, there cannot be any doubt. He had an amazingly retentive memory and could cite passage after passage from English and classical poetry without having to look at the text. He has a delightful style of writing, but he has many limitations too. He is a man of a very strong likes and dislikes, the dislike being much stronger than the likes. The major important works of Dr. Samuel Johnson include Preface to Shakespeare. Now, in this book, Dr. Johnson's criticism of Shakespeare with reference to Preface to Shakespeare is that Dr. Johnson talked about Shakespeare, tragic comedy, that there is always an appeal open for criticism to nature. He favors Shakespeare, tragic comedy, although there is a lot of charges on Shakespeare that he has not followed the classical notion of tragedy and there should not be any mingling of tragedy or comedy. It should either be comedy or tragedy. Still, he follows or he favors Shakespeare in this matter. The second point is that Dr. Johnson said that he is true to nature. Nature, he means nature of human being. Dr. Johnson, wherever he said nature, he talked about human nature, not about outward nature. So he favors Shakespeare in the nature, and his meaning of nature is about human nature. The third point is that Dr. Johnson said that pleasure or the dramatic pleasure or the pleasure of literature lies in the variety. He also favors Shakespeare in this, where Shakespeare said, all pleasure consists in variety. And he said it is quite justifiable, so there should be the mixing of tragedy and comedy. It is not possible for movie to be whole tragic or whole comedian. So Shakespeare truly represents that. So he also favors Shakespeare in this matter. In the fourth point, according to some other critic, Shakespeare wrote the greatest tragedies, but according to Johnson, he said Shakespeare's genius lies not in tragedy but in comedy. His tragedy seems to be skillful, his comedy to be instant. So his genius quality is to write comedy. Shakespeare's instant quality is to write comedy. He wrote tragedy forcefully on the basis of skills. Comedy comes to him naturally. Language of comedy is the language of real life for Shakespeare, according to Dr. Johnson. So his viewpoint about unities is that as far as the unity of action is concerned, according to Dr. Johnson, Shakespeare followed unity of action fairly. He excuses about Shakespeare unity of time and action. He says that as drama is a delusion and delusion has no limit. He said if action exceed from 24 hours or 24 years, it makes no difference. If action is performed in England or many other places, it makes no difference. So he excuses in this matter, he only follows unity of action. Instead of unity of time or place, he only follow unity of action. Now Dr. Johnson about Shakespeare historical context, his viewpoint is that he said that if he used some spirits, ghost and illusion or the use of supernatural elements, so that is the requirement of his age and audience. That's why he presented supernatural elements in his plays. his historical views is like that he used some supernatural elements because it was the requirement of that age. That's why he used it. Now he also represents some of the faults of Shakespeare as well. He said that he seems to write without any moral or moral purpose. He did not write anything from moral point of view because it was the requirement of neoclassical writers. As far as literature is concerned, first of all you teach and then delight. So the didactic purpose is the primary purpose in neoclassical or neoclassicism. And the second thing is that he said that his plots are loosely followed. His plots are digressive in nature, plot within plot and subplot. The third point is that he said that the tragic end catastrophe in tragedies of Shakespeare is forced and improbable. For example, Queen Gertrude in Hamlet, forced death. The fourth point or fourth fault of the Shakespeare that he highlight, Dr. Samuel Johnson highlight, is that he said that Shakespeare jokes are gross and licentious. Gross mean vulgar, used in the base language. According to Johnson, he even do not rightly use puns. So the fifth point is that, fifth fault is that he said sometimes he used pompous kind of language, narration. It is not looks natural. So it is the fault of Shakespeare according to Dr. Samuel Johnson. So the merits of Shakespeare is that the first merit is that he said that Shakespeare is naturally learned. He does not copy others, but writers from his own observation. But he writes from his own observation, sorry. He said that Shakespeare is naturally learned. He does not copy others, but writes from his own observation. So the second point is that according to him, Shakespeare characters are not two individual and not two types, not two typical, but they are species. A species means that every kind of person from your life can be found in the character of Shakespeare. So there is a whole new world in Shakespeare character, and every character is different from one play to another play. The third merit is he used remote things, use of supernatural presented in the way that it looks natural or familiar. He also familiarizes the wonderful elements like in Midsummer Night Dream. He explained fairy world looks like that you are familiar. It is wonderful plus romantic. The fourth merit is that his characters are the genius progeny of common humanity. His characters depicts the the next generation, how human behave in different situations. He presented it through characters. He said that Shakespeare is one of the original masters of our language. He says that his plays increase our knowledge of human nature. And the seventh merit is that Dr. Samuel Johnson said that just unity of action is essential. Unity of time does not matters a lot, because he said drama is an imitation of action. Imitation gives us pleasure, not because they are mistaken for reality, but because they bring realities to mind. He said that Shakespeare need to fulfill the rules of his age and write according to the parameters of Elizabethan age. He said that Shakespeare make nature predominate, progeny, character used in a way that they know about future. So he justifies the unity of action, but he excuses about Dr. Samuel Johnson, excuses about the unity of place and time of Shakespeare, how he used such kind of unities in his plays, but he he basically we can say that he basically justified that how he used the unity of action in his play. So that's all from my side. If you have any queries, you can ask me in the comment section. Please like, subscribe and share my channel. Thank you for watching.